I bust through like I'm dinos. My eyes blue and my wave cold. Magician never reveals a secret, but it's dark like when your eyes close. You need a heart, but you'll switch. Play your cards that you deal with. I'm a terror, I flip for my subs, so show me love and we set like Ellis. Yo, this is Cam and this is the Yugi-Flow, and in today's video, I am talking to my returning players. That is right. If you have taken a break from this game, whether it's extended or short, you are going to come back to the game and it's not going to be how you left it, and that is going to be a major issue for your Yugi experience. So I do have 5 tips for returning players that, it might help your transition go a little bit easier. It's really important to make sure that this is a smooth transition. This game can get complicated. It can be overwhelming. And as long as you follow these tips, I think you'll be all right. Okay, so tip number 1, very important tip. Find a deck that you like, one that works for you, and one that works for your playing style. A lot of my returning players tend to stay, invested in this deck they ran years ago or a way of deck building they ran years ago. It's not to say that you always have to have 40 card decks. It's not to say that you always have to have the top tier decks, but it's saying that you need to have some type of way for your deck to go together, like some type of way for things to make sense, right? So if you're gonna have a flip monster base deck, right, and you're just dead set on that, you can't look at cards like Man-Eater Bug and think like, oh, that's what I'm gonna use. You're probably gonna want to use Shadows, right? And it's hard for my returning players to hear that type of thing. Like, I get it, but you have to adapt with the times. Like, Man-Eater Bug is a destruction card that's great. It's typically a 1-for-1. I attack into you, destroy me. But what are you gonna do if I have protection? Now you just lost it. Or what are you gonna do if I don't care if you destroy my one card? Like, in today's game, you put so many cards on board. I don't care that you destroy this card. I literally don't care. I will get it. Let me play Virtual World and you think, oh, I'm gonna destroy your shit and shit with Man-Eater Bug. Okay, I'll see you next turn, I guess. Like, is this all you got? This is really all you got. Okay. And that's one of the biggest roadblocks I see a lot of people who are returning hit is they're not willing to find a deck that works for them that's from this time or can compete with this time. Like a deck like Altergeist. Though some people play it horribly, but it's not about that right now. It's about a deck that has an old school feel, but can still compete in today's meta. That's the decks you're looking for if you're not willing to go to some of the more popular decks. I run dinos. It's not hard to learn. It's hard to maneuver through hand traps and things like that, but those type of things you'll get better at, the more you play. But look for those type of decks. I would stay away from decks like Virtual World and Drytron and Tri-Brigade. Though those are probably the top 3 decks. At the moment, it's a reason they're the top 3 decks. A lot of people run them, but everyone can't run them the way that the top people run them. That's just kind of how it goes. So you want to make sure that you have a deck that has good synergy, but at the same period of time fits your play style. If you feel, because I know some new players like it's soft to set 5 and pass. Okay, don't run a deck that sets 5 and pass. I don't want to have to put all these monsters and learn all these combos. Okay, there is a deck for you. Just find it. You know what I mean? Okay, so number 2 is going to be learn the rules. This might not apply to everybody, but it definitely applies to a lot of the returning players that I'm talking to. You know who you are. We were not playing correctly. And even before I started playing in tournaments and at card shops and all that, we weren't playing right. Like certain things like once per turn, soft versus hard once per turns. A lot of us don't know what that means. Like, honestly, just being very honest. Like, you go to a card shop and you'll dang near embarrass yourself because you're sitting here trying to explain to someone what your card does, and that's not what it does. Like, if you have a card that says, if this card is flipped, then do this, it doesn't mean that you can re-flip it down. Like, it has to be very specific in the text of what you're allowed to do and what the rules of it is. That's really important for a lot of my players because you play against someone who plays these days, and maybe your deck could have beat theirs, but you don't know the rules, so it takes the fun out the game because you just weren't prepared to deal with what they're talking about. Also, too, just it makes the game overall funner because you're not sitting here wondering each turn, am I allowed to do this? Can I do this? What is this about? Okay, what is a quick effect? What is this? Like, you're sitting here trying to figure, like, chains itself is difficult for new players to start out because they resolve backwards. Certain things can't respond to other things. There's intricate things about chains that if you don't understand the basics of chains, you're not going to get it. Like something as simple as, and I know this is a run-on joke, but a lot of my returning players genuinely feel this, that MST doesn't negate. A lot of us growing up was taught that, first of all, just to chain something to MST for a lot of people is different. Like, that was a whole new world for me. Like, I didn't know that you could do that. I thought if you MST my face down trap or my face down quick spell or whatever, that I couldn't activate it. I missed my chance. Like, that's how we played. Like, for some of you guys, you're probably looking and saying, oh, that doesn't make sense. But, like, for a lot of us, it's like we didn't know those type of rules. Like, chaining, a lot of us didn't know what it was. Like, I do this, you know, damage calculation, damage step, with the difference between, you know, the different damage portion. Like, a lot of that is just lost, like, right? Like, some things you take the battle damage, some things you don't. You have mandatory effects like Baby in Graveyard, or you have Constructs battle effect. Like, some things it's like you don't have an option of whether you want to activate it. I feel like Cyber Dragon Core, it doesn't matter. The whole point is learn it. Like, especially if it's a deck you're running, you're going to want to know your deck better than anybody. So, it's great. Thing number 3. Also important for me. Playing online is really helpful because starting with a simulator like Dueling Nexus is amazing because it shows you what you can and can't do, which then makes you ask yourself, why is this thing available? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it puts it into a point where you're trying to figure out how you got to the end board. A problem with it is sometimes you're just pressing buttons. You find yourself not even figuring out why you're able to do it. You just can do it, so you do it. You have to make sure that you make these things work for you and your style of learning and your style of play. For me, it was a good starting ground. I recommend anybody start off with Dueling Nexus. It's great, but just remember that that's not where you should end. You also get to play against different decks. When you're playing against the same people all the time, you get an idea in your mind that this is what the meta looks like, right? Like, everybody I was playing against is running like trap heavy. Like, I'm scared to attack. There's mirror forces everywhere with the people I was playing with. And it's just, that's not what people are playing. It's good to play against those. You want to make sure you're ready for anything. But if you guys are part of the smaller minority of players, and you want to make sure that you're not basing your entire deck strategy off of that minority, because when you go play in real life and no one's playing Mirror Force and you're scared to attack because you're playing Mirror Force, the difference between one turn will cost you a game. Playing online helps curb that because you get an idea of what the different decks are, what they do, and what people are actually playing. That's really important. Number 4, very important, find a community. It can be your online community. It can be a comic book store. It can literally be the people you play with, as long as they're also willing to learn the game and advance and those type of things. But you do need to find people like you playing what you want to play, how you want to play it, or just in general, and that's going to make the game more fun and it's going to make it a better experience for you. As a returning player, it's easy to feel isolated because a lot of these people know each other. The community is really tight-knit, so you go to a comic book store, everyone knows each other, everyone's in their same groups, and it feels like high school again. And it's just, no one feels like being in high school again, trying to make new friends and all those type of things. Like, I don't want to have to make new friends, honestly, like, if I'm being honest with you. But it makes the game more enjoyable, it makes it a funner experience, and it helps calm your nerves during tournaments if you see somebody you know. Outside of that, it's just you have questions that you have and you might not want to ask certain people, or you might feel like it's a bad question, which in Yu-Gi-Oh, there's really not too many bad questions. Like, I don't think I've ever told somebody, if they asked me a question, that the question was a bad question or they should already know that. But you want to make sure the people that you're hanging with, that they have the same interests as you. So if you want to be a meta player who wins tournaments and you want to do all that, you're going to want to hang around people who are meta players, who play in tournaments, who want to win as well. It's going to make it a much easier experience for you and a much easier experience for them, because you guys are going to be able to feed off each other. But if you hate meta and you just want to play for fun and you don't care about winning whatsoever and you don't want to deal with my dinos running you over, your community should be filled with other people who want to do that. And that's important. Simple. Kind of. The last thing I would say, and it is pretty important, and it seems like something that I shouldn't have to tell you, but I do. You need to relax. Honestly. I know it's a lot coming towards you, and it gets overwhelming, and it feels like everything is just way more complicated than it needs to be. Every deck is unfair. Every card is unfair. Like, and I've been there. First time playing against Dragoon, almost cried. Don't tell anybody though. But now I play Dragoon. And I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you have to switch over to the dark side and play what you hate. But what I'm saying is, the more that you play it, the less scary it becomes, right? Now if someone pulls out Dragoon, I don't even bat an eye. I might lose because of that Dragoon, but at no moment in my mind do I say, oh, I lost because he had Dragoon, and if he didn't have Dragoon, I would have beat him. That card's unfair. It's like, nah, it's just a card. There are unfair cards, right? But at the end of the day, like, you have to just relax and understand that everything is not going to be what you need it to be. It's not going to be what you assumed it is. Like, the game is not what it was. And as long as you can understand that, I think you'll be okay. Those are my 5 tips for returning players. And I think that the best thing that you can do is just figure out who you are. The game is great. It's not as you left it, but it's just as good.
The best. I don't fail shit, I don't rest. Or scoop a brick, I won't let you take a win, that's 2-0. Move slow when I combo, that's Dragon Link. Pass turn, no need to think. The world I'm in is virtual, where the sky's Ojama pink.